This was supposed to be a parts mower, but let's see if we can fix it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to start working on this, what I think is a lawn chief riding mower. Let's see, the only identification there is the logo on the seat. I couldn't find any, decals or branding on the machine itself. Originally, I bought this mower at an auction. I think I paid like $25, but I was originally interested in it just for the tires and the wheels for a different project. And they ended up not working for that one because they had a different hub style. So I kept it and it's been sitting. There's not really, I don't have a whole lot of use for it as far as a parts machine goes. Possibly the transmission, possibly the engine. It's had some modifications done to it. Got a push button ignition. Nice little hole in the side of the cowl. Some aftermarket latches. And the hole from the cowl is because there's an oversized muffler put on here. And if you can see, there's like a... First I thought it was like part of the frame, but there's a stainless steel. They just kind of tack welded an extension on there. So it's, I don't know. The machine itself isn't terrible. It's just, at best, this is going to be like a mud machine, The not the PTO, but the crankshaft pulley is smushed. There's no deck. A couple weeks ago, I was looking at this machine, trying to figure out a game plan, to see, to maximize the efficiency of my time, trying to get as many machines done as I can before winter. And I was doing compression tests on the different machines that I have. This one had good compression. I can't remember what it was. I think around 120. That was a cover for the ignition. I think it was around 120 psi in the compression. So I was like, okay, that's worth, maybe I can get this thing running and somebody will want it for the engine, or, maybe we'll get $100 out of it for a mud mower or something. And then something weird happened. I went to go spin it over the other day just to start kind of assessing it. So I had the compression tester in there, spark plug out, and I had compression. But now it spins, but it locks up at the compression stroke. So it'll spin and then lock up. And I had the jumper pack on it trying to spin it over. And the starter motor does not have enough power to overcome that binding. So there's a massive amount of compression here that just kind of came out of the blue. Not sure what that's about. This is a Briggs Intac, I believe. And so just doing some research online, turns out, it could be a couple of things. There could be hydrolocked, which I don't think it is because the fuel tank is empty. The fuel line was shut off. I have no reason to believe that it's full of water. And like I said, I had the spark plug out doing the compression test. if there was fuel or water in the combustion chamber, it would have shot out of the spark plug hole, or at least leaked out prior to putting the compression tester in. I don't think it's hydrolocked. It could be a valve lash problem, which would be fairly simple to correct, or it could be some catastrophic damage to the camshaft, specifically the compression release valve. So we're going to try to start getting into this, and we'll start with simple and go to complex depending on what we need to do to try to figure out what's going on and what happened. If it's a valve problem, hopefully we can just correct it, get this thing running, and then we'll sell it as a parts machine. If it is a camshaft problem, well, then I got to look at it and see if it even makes sense. So first of all, let's get into it. I want to, so the other thing I was looking at is that the camshaft on these engines is sometimes plastic, or maybe not the camshaft, but the decompression valve. And sometimes it's metal. So if it's metal and it has sheared, then we might see some rainbow in the oil. I figured first things first, let's dump the oil and see what that looks like. Then if we don't see any metal flakes or anything, we can move on and check the valves. All right, sound good? So unfortunately, I like to get these things running to heat up the oil before we drain it, and that is obviously not going to happen. So it's probably going to come out pretty thick, if at all. I didn't even check to see if we have oil. Yes, there is. Oh yeah, it's coming out now. Leave that open so it can breathe and drain. It's dark. I don't see any rainbows right now, but we'll let it drain for a little bit. And I think I'm going to probably take this cover off, which is already loose. It's just one bolt on each side, it looks like. And then we can start looking at the valves to see what's going on. Oh, that's convenient. This aftermarket exhaust is in the way. Yeah. So, like I said, I've got, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 other machines sitting around at the house right now. And I just want to get things cleaned up before winter. Last year I ran out of time while I was working in the Cub Cadet. And even though this one isn't going to be a real money maker, there's no point in leaving it to sit around and rot. So hopefully we can get it running, and even if we make a few bucks, like I said, I got 25 bucks into it, so I guess it doesn't hurt to try. Whether or not somebody's going to want it, that's a different story. So far the tires do seem like they're holding air. I haven't aired them up, but they look like they're holding air. That side. All right, cover is off. Okay, while that oil is draining, let's go ahead and take a look at these valves. Need a new boot for the spark plug. I don't think I even checked to see if this had spark yet. So now if this was hydrolocked, fuel, and or whatever liquid is in there, whether it's water, fuel, or thinned out oil from the crankcase, should come dripping out of the combustion chamber. And the plug should be wet. And it looks pretty dry. And in fact, it looks pretty good condition. So I don't think that's the case. And now with the spark plug out, there should be no compression lock on the cylinder. Okay, so that's good, I suppose. The big thing is, the camshaft. So from what I have read and looked at, it seems like with these engines, it's pretty common. Hopefully that's not the case, but we'll see. The nice thing about this is that since this is a Briggs, I might have parts available. So just checking the lash. Doesn't seem terrible. We'll see. So the way that you can check if the decompression valve has broken, I want to try to get you guys set up in a good spot to see this. Let's see here. So this lower valve is going to be the intake, and the upper one is the exhaust. Now when you're spinning it over, you can see it will go through. It'll go through the different cycles. And what I want to see is, okay, we're going down on here. So the pressure should be off on this valve. And that doesn't seem terrible. So this push rod, you should be able to see just a little minute bump. And that is the decompression valve. So we'll cycle through until I think it was right there. It's kind of hard to spin this thing. Let's see here. So right now we're closing. So closing, and then just a tiny bump. So that should indicate that the camshaft is okay. However, this push rod appears like it's a little bent. This one is coming out here, and they're offset, but this one comes out, and this one is kind of kicked in at a whatever 10-degree angle off. You see that? Not sure if that's by design, but that seems kind of odd. Anyways, I'm gonna go through and just check the valve lash and see if I see anything out of place, because if the valve gap is not set correctly, that can also imitate the symptoms of a shear decompression valve. The valve clearance should be 3 to 5 thousandths on the intake and 5 to 7 on the exhaust, and right now we're at about 11 thousandths on the intake, and let's see here. Exhaust looks like it's pretty good. What did I say, 5 to 7? The hair off. I mean, let's see here. What do we got? Here's 11 again. That's too tight. So it is closer to spec than the intake, at least. Yeah, about 8 thousandths. So, I don't know, I think I will, maybe 7.5. It might, this one is pretty close. I mean, that's 7 right there. That's at the far end of spec, and that's pretty good. You know, if it were me, I'd kind of want to be right in the middle of that 5 to 7 at 6, but I think what I'll do is I will go ahead and just close up the gap a little bit on both of these, and then we'll throw the cover on and see if it'll spin over. Okay, the locking screw on these valves is a T20 torque bit, 10 millimeter wrench for the adjustment screw. Nut, I should say. So I want 6 thousandths on this exhaust valve, which is right about there. Just a little drag. So now I'm going to hold it in place there and lock it in. And then check it one more time. That feels pretty good to me. Still don't know if this push rod is bent. Seems really odd to me. Anyways, I'm going to turn it over again until pressure is off the intake. In fact, kind of want to just watch the travel of this push rod to see what kind of motion it has. Okay, let's see here, right about there. What did I say? We wanted to be 3 to 5 on the intake. So let's look for 4 thousandths. Should really get a new set of feeler gauges because I can hardly see the numbers on here. This is my dad's set of feeler gauges, so it's pretty old. All right, 4 thousandths, and this one was like 11. So we're going to loosen this retaining screw and then tighten until we get just a little bit of drag on here. Like I said, 3 to 5 is okay. That's within spec. That's why I like to shoot for the middle. I mean, why not? That way, if I'm off by a little bit, I have some wiggle room. If I go try to set it for 5 and I'm off, well, then I could be out of spec. So that should be locked in place. That feels pretty good to me. All right, now we can spin it over and just see the travel. So the valves are opening and closing. So we know that there's not a stuck valve. we know that, at least I'm fairly confident that the decompression valve is intact and functioning, because there's just a tiny minuscule bump in that intake push rod. So camshaft has lobes on it, and as it revolves, those lobes are what push on these push rods to open and close the intake and exhaust valve. Well, there's a little teeny decompression valve that's also built into the camshaft on this engine. And the decompression valve is set to open the intake valve just a tiny amount to let out some of the compression. So that way the engine has an easier time turning over. If it has too much compression, then the starter motor won't be able to compensate and overcome that. Which is why, if the decompression valve is not functioning, not only do you run the risk of having, metal chunks in the crankcase, which is essentially shrapnel, it's not performing the function of the decompression valve. So you can't overcome that. I mean, you can overcome the compression. There are ways to do it, but for like a long-term solution, you have to replace the camshaft. So, like I said, I think there's right there, that little bump. So I think that's good. I'm going to go ahead and throw this valve cover back in. And then what I want to do is put the spark plug back, and we can just try to spin it over by hand. Like I was saying, it would get to the compression stroke and it would just be super tight. So if that small correction that we made to the valves, plural, if that was our problem, we should find out real quick. Now, with the spark plug out, obviously, compression can't build up in the combustion chamber. So you're not going to be able to tell. That's why we have to put it back in order to see if it'll spin over. And then if it spins over by hand, we can put the jumper pack on. And I don't have any oil in it because I just drained it out. And I'll show you that in a second, just to kind of confirm what we're thinking. So I don't want to spin it over like crazy, but if it'll make a couple revolutions, then I'm pretty confident that it was just the valve clearance. So let's see. Can you see the flywheel? All right. Nope. Well, maybe. There's compression right here. I don't know. That still seems like an awful lot of compression. So the only other thing that I can think is that maybe that push rod is bent. And so on the compression stroke, it's fighting that resistance. So let's see, we could pop the valve cover back off, take off the rocker for the exhaust valve, and pull the push rod out and see what it looks like. If the push rod is bent, then I would assume that this engine overheated. If that's the case, Maybe that's why they ended up, I don't know why they put this bigger muffler in. There wasn't like a whole lot of debris under the shroud. So I'm not sure, normally if it overheated, you can see there's some remnants of, maybe that would be enough to cause it. The air-cooled engine relies on the fins of the flywheel to draw air in. And then with the engine cover on, the red cover, the air is directed through and down the fins of the crankcase. Well, if these are packed full of, nest material, that air can't travel through there. The engine builds up heat and it'll overheat. You can have a dropped seat, you can have a stuck or scorched valve, you can have a bent push rod, you can have a seized piston, you can have any number of things. So it's good to, whenever you're working on an unknown machine, it's good to take the covers off, check and see if there's any nesting material before you go and fire it up, clean it out if necessary. I'm just trying to think, like, I think that the decompression valve works. The only way to confirm that is to remove the engine, drop the sump, split the engine in half, and then we can take out the camshaft and take a look at it. Otherwise, we can look at the push rod. Yeah, let's do that. I mean, we're right here. I got everything sitting here. So we'll just pop the valve cover off again. It just, if that push rod is bent, then kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, well, what else is going on, Yeah, I don't know. That looks pretty straight to me. That's odd. That valve is definitely not stuck. I mean, neither one of them. Well, I mean, just because, you know what? I wonder if it might be on the underside of the crankshaft. I mean, maybe this has nothing to do with the engine itself. Wouldn't that be something? Because this is kind of looking, it's mimicking the same thing as that decompression valve, but I don't think it is. Let's throw this back in. Of course, now I gotta set that valve clearance again. I say 6 thousandths. I don't know. This is why I kind of like. Well, it's not why I kind of like. This is why I like working on equipment like this. It's, everything is a mystery, and it's kind of fun to essentially play detective and try to figure out what's going on. Because especially when, like, this, I was almost certain this was going to be the decompression valve. Like, I would have bet money on it, and cross my fingers. So far, it seems like that's not what it is. But I'm just curious, if we look on the underside and try to spin the engine over, are we going to see something rubbing or some kind of resistance on the crankshaft? Because the other thing too is, if something hit that crankshaft pulley hard enough to bend it like that, theoretically the crankshaft could be bent. And that would cause some problems as well. So let's just get this back in and then we'll take a look. Here's the oil that has now finished draining. And I don't see, any rainbows. If that camshaft had exploded and disintegrated into metal particles and shavings, there would be like rainbows in here. And really, I don't see anything. It looks fairly clean. I mean, it's dark, but I don't see a lot of sludge. I don't see water or gas. This stuff up here was in the pan already, but so I'm gonna need you guys' help here trying to look at what is going on underneath the crankshaft. I'm try to figure that out. I suppose, you know what? It might even be that drive belt. If these spindles are locked up, wouldn't that be dumb? If these mosquitoes are bad today. If these spindles are frozen, any one of them, that could create too much drag on the belt, which would then create too much resistance on the crankshaft, and it wouldn't turn over very well. Huh. Didn't think of that, did you? So I suppose I should think about taking the belt off and isolating the engine from the machine. That'd be smart, huh? With the brakes set, I've got a little bit of play in this belt, and I just want to see if I can slide it down and off the crankshaft pulley. There are belt guides in place. And the belt feels pretty stiff. I'd like to get this one off as well. That's probably not going to happen. I don't think I have enough slack to drop it all the way, around the crankshaft. Maybe I can just. That one's not going to spin off, is it? This is part of the arm. This belt guide right here. So I got to be able to get this pulley off, which looks like somebody already tried to do. Is pretty dinged up. So I'm gonna work on this for a little bit. I mean, right now, if there was any drag, it should be off. Maybe not 100%, but reduced. So let's just see if we can spin this over without getting that. It feels right there. I mean, that feels like a lot. I wonder if we might have a bent crankshaft. I don't know. We'll have to look at this for a minute because decompression valve seems to work. Valves are working. Valve clearance is set. It's not hydrolocked. I don't know what else could cause that excess compression. All right, let me ponder this for a minute. All right, I had another thought, and this is probably a long shot. But let's say, for instance, the exhaust valve is good. Well, who's to say that the muffler isn't completely plugged? If that were the case, there would be nowhere for the exhaust to go. Therefore, that compression would be trapped, and that's a different size. That compression would be trapped, and that's why it wouldn't be able to be overcome. I gotta get a different size socket. 14 millimeter on this one, ½ inch on the other. Close enough, right? So theoretically, this could be packed with carbon, could be packed with nest material, could be, I don't know, could be totally fine. And got this one, which happens to be 10 mil. And very tight. Well, unfortunately, I don't think that was it. I don't know if you can see in there, but muffler looks pretty clean. And that is the exhaust port. So now we're back to thinking again. Well, we're still having problems with the compression on this lawn chief. It seemed like on the Briggs, the decompression valve was working when I was looking at the valves opening and closing, but it's such a microscopic amount that the valve moves when the decompression valve fires. I can't really tell, and I don't know, I kind of wrapped my head trying to figure out what else it could be, and that's all I can think of, honestly. So I think what we're going to do, and I'm not super thrilled about this, I think we're going to go ahead and pop this engine open, and then we'll see exactly what's going on. I mean, that's the only way to really know for sure. At least that's my plan. Well, looks like we have a sheared flywheel key. I was not expecting that. I wonder exactly what we're going to have to do to get this flywheel off. I don't know if this has to come out. Nope. Let me change gears for a minute. Metal retaining ring. And I don't know if that has to come out or not. Probably not. This plastic shroud should lift off. That's also keyed. The O-ring on the dipstick tube is leaking. That's what all the oil is from. Now, I think if we apply a little persuasion, if I can find a good spot to pry on, should be able to just bust this off. Let's try it with the nut or bolt, I should say, so we don't go flying. I might have to get a metal hammer too. That does not seem like it wants to play nice. With that key sheared, it's kind of galled up the surface. So it might be hard to get that want to come out. All right, flywheel's off. Just a little bit of heat took it right out. And you can see the key is smushed. But I don't think that's the problem, because it's still in the keyway. So I don't know. We'll just keep going. Stator has been cut, so no battery charging. I'm gonna have to look and see if this is a salvageable engine. I'm gonna have to look and see if I have a stator. This was supposed to be just like a parts mower initially, and then I decided, let's see if we can get it to run, and then if so, I'll sell it as is for like a racing mower / mud mower, something like that, or just sell the engine outright. Oh, you know what? It helps to take all of the bolts out. There are 4. So I'm not sure why somebody would have clipped that. And maybe I can just scab on some leads if I don't have one. But we'll deal with that later. I want to, I haven't even looked at the carb yet because we haven't been able to get this to turn over very well. There's some debris on the fins, so I mean maybe this thing overheated. I don't know the story. It's definitely kind of an interesting machine, just with the aftermarket, not even aftermarket, but the wrong muffler on it. You know, it had no deck. There was some cobbling together, repairs, parts, electrical bypasses and whatnot. So I think all we have left are the engine mounting bolts, and I got to get the drive pulley off the crankshaft from below, and I'm not really looking forward to that. But I think let's just remove as much as we can to make our lives easier. So we can go ahead, take off the air cleaner housing, the carburetor, fuel lines, and that muffler, because that's going to get replaced if this runs. And if it doesn't, then I don't know, we'll just see what we can salvage. Let me think here. I wonder if we can thread on these two nuts, and then we'll have something to turn against. That's not even the right nut. That ain't gonna work. I got the looks like these two bolts that hold the carburetor on. I wonder if it all comes off together in one assembly. So let's try to zip those out, and we'll see what we got to do. I don't envision this to be a big money maker, if at all. This ought to be fun to get it out of the yard, and also, you know, maybe we can have some fun in the process. So we got the breather. This spring is broken or off. Just off the linkage. Should be able to. Oh, there's another set of nuts here on the holding the carb on, and those are a different size thread. Let's see. Yeah, it takes the whole stem out. All right. Now we should have the carburetor. This is, I don't even know what kind of, not even fuel line, it's something. Sorry about that. Yeah, see what's going on? We get our linkages out, and here's the carb. I wonder, just for fun, let's see what kind of condition we got here in the float bowl. Here's the right one. And it's gonna be 10 millimeter. Well, what do you think? Not terrible, actually. I mean, there's a little bit of dirt and rust in there. Tank is dry, so that probably has something to do with it. Do you even see that? Not bad. A little bit of dirt and rust, but overall in better condition than I was expecting. The tank was dry, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. We'll set that aside to be looked at later. Now, what do you want to do? Suppose we can try to remove these linkages before we lose them. I can't see where that spring goes. There's just a lot of caked on schmoo. There we go. And this one was nice enough to come off too. Now, let's get that muffler off. Just because that's going to go straight into the garbage. And this one, if I remember correctly, was two different sizes. I believe was 1/2 inch and 14 millimeter. This one looks like it could possibly be correct because it's got the shoulder on it. But I don't, it just seems like a oddly large muffler for this engine. So what is the equivalent of 14 millimeter? Like 9/16? Sure. And really, the truth is I'm doing all this because I'm procrastinating on trying to get the drive pulley off. That's already bent, and there's probably a reason why it's bent. Let's just say that. So I can't imagine that it's going to be in great condition. 3/8. I mean, I don't know, maybe that is the right size. I don't know. We'll look it up and see. It doesn't seem right to me, but I have been wrong before. I think that's all we can do on the top side. Yeah, pretty filthy. All right, let's take a look down below. I took these out of the way. Let's see what we got going on down here. So we got the drive pulley. It's also, I mean, it's the drive pulley and the deck pulley. And it looks like a blade guard or a belt guard. This has to come off, this whole assembly has to come off in order to get the crankshaft out. And they are notorious for seizing on, so let's see what we can do. Try to get you guys set up so you can see. That should be probably 5/8. Yes. Sure would be nice if this just popped right off. Oh, it's actually kind of moving. Maybe I'm just imagining things. What happened to my big long pry bar? There it is. If we get this off, then we'll be home free. Let's just give it some persuasion here. Oh, I think it's moving. Ah, nice. All right, that's keyed. And the key looks intact. We'll take a closer look later. All right, now we just got these engine mounts, which are look like 5/8, but they don't seem to want to go. Well, I'm just spinning it over, so I might. Let's try 9/16. That's better. We'll get a little extension. One. Oh, that's not ideal. Blocked by this tie rod. Right. Two. Okay, that's fun. Three. I just gotta get. Oh, hey. And the bolt there. Nice. Yeah, there we go. Uh-oh. I love it. Instead of just taking the tie rod off, all right, that's 4. Now, what am I forgetting? Is that everything? Yeah. All right, we're there. So I'm going to take this inside the shed so I don't make as big of a mess. And then we'll crack her open. All right, we're going to buzz this sump cover off. And I'm hoping that we'll see, well, not, it's a double-edged sword. I'm hoping that it's going to be the compression release valve on the camshaft, the decompression valve. But I mean, if that's the case, then that means we need a new camshaft. But if it's not the case, then I'm kind of at a loss for what it could be. Why is that one so tight? All right. Let's try a little manual action. This should be all of them. Should. I'm pretty sure that these are all the same size. That one's kind of galled up. They look the same. We did drain the oil, but there's bound to be some residual. Give us a couple of love taps. I have not looked to see about seals or gaskets or anything. There we go. Well, gasket's toast. That was expected. A smarter guy probably would have cleaned this off before getting in here, because now it's going to need it with all of this wonderful junk in there. Suppose I could take my glasses off now that we're inside. See what's going on. Governor looks fine. Okay. Trying to find the timing mark on the camshaft right there. Hmm. Let's just go ahead. I wouldn't think that it would need to have spark plug out, but there's an awful lot of compression still. I'm trying to be ginger with this spark plug because the threads on the spark plug hole are starting to look a little mangled, especially right at the beginning. It's kind of hard to get a plug threaded in. All right, now let's spin it over to the timing mark. Still can't. What in the world? I wonder if this thing overheated and the piston is scored. There we go. All right. Timing is aligned. Oh, decompression valve is good. Camshaft looks good, and this is one of the solid ones too. On some of these, there's holes. You know, like 70% of this is open. So, unfortunately, that means that we did that for no reason. But there, I mean, something is still off. Because even right now, it's just, I can't even hardly get it to spin. So something's going on. I'm guessing we might need to take the piston out and on the cylinder walls and pretty much overhaul this whole engine. So that's cool. Lifters are fine. We thought maybe one of the valves could have been bent. So I wonder if it did overheat and cause some damage. I think I'm gonna kind of clean some of this up a little bit and then kind of poke around, see what I can find. If there's any clues, I will bring you guys back when I find something interesting. All right, it's been a few days. I was waiting for some parts. I got this whole block disassembled, and I really didn't see anything major. Try to get this so you can see it. There's one little spot down here. There's two little dimples on the cylinder wall. You can see like right here. I don't think that would cause that compression issue or if the piston was snagging it on something. It looks like that's where the skirt ends. And there's a little bit of surface rust on here, but overall there's no scoring. There's no deep scratches or anything. And same thing on the piston skirt. Rings are free. Yeah, I'm kind of perplexed. There's a little bit of scoring here on the connecting arm, but the crankshaft journal looks fine. Yeah, I'm kind of perplexed. The one thing that I did find, which I didn't notice right off the bat, the flywheel, we knew that the magneto was sheared, but then I got replacement Sten's diode. I'm just going to wire this. The black, from what I can tell, the black wire is the AC current that goes to the lights. And this lawnmower does not have lights, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to directly wire the red wire with the diode to the new starter switch that I picked up. This is an aftermarket one as well. The big thing was, I'm running out of room here. On the flywheel, let's see if we can find it. Right here. There's a tooth missing. So that could be, maybe the starter was catching on this tooth that was missing. I don't know. Either way, I got a new ring gear for the flywheel. And I'm just going to grind these heads off these rivets so the ring gear will pop off. And then the new one comes with bolts that just thread it on. I got a new gasket set. I got to finish cleaning up the gasket material here on the surfaces. And then I'm just going to clean everything up the best that I can. And I will probably hone this cylinder. I want to get rid of that burr, or those little, I don't even know what those are. There's two little dimples there. I want to clean those up, clean up the head. There's nothing really obvious going on. So the plan is I'm just going to clean everything up, put everything back together, throw it on the machine, and see if it'll turn over. I'll save you guys the enjoyment of watching me clean things, and I'll bring you back together. I'll bring you back when I have it back together, unless I find something more interesting to show you. All right, I did some time traveling, and we have fast forwarded about a week. Time was really getting away from me, just with work and whatnot, so I didn't film a whole lot, and I wanted to get you guys caught up to speed. Engine is more or less back on. I still have to put the drive pulley back on underneath on the crankshaft. Not sure if I'm going to go through and try to straighten out these pulleys, but we'll see. I did remove a lot of stuff from here just because this is more of a, what I would call like a pulling mower. It doesn't have a deck or anything, so I got rid of the deck height adjustment and the engagement lever and engagement pulley system for the deck. I got rid of the push button ignition that was right here and ordered a normal ignition, I guess, key switch ignition. And so that's going to change our wiring setup a little bit, and I still haven't figured it out quite yet. This is an unregulated system. There's no voltage regulator aside from there's a little teeny diode in this red line. It's right up here actually. And I had to splice this onto the wire coming from the stator because it was cut right here. And I ordered this just for the diode. The normal wiring harness has the black and the red go into a white clip, and then that clip goes somewhere else. But I don't need the black because that is for the AC circuit to the headlights, and I'm not planning on using those. I don't have them anyways, so I'm just eliminating that aspect. And I think I can go right from the diode to the ignition switch. I have to figure out what pin that goes to. And then I have to run a signal from the ignition to the solenoid. And I have to finish running the kill switch to the coil. So I gotta do those things. I do have a good battery for it. I'm gonna offer this with or without the battery. We'll see if we have any takers. Tires are still holding air fairly well. This one, I think maybe it was this back one. I feel like, yeah, this back one is low. So I got to figure out where that's leaking from. I think it was off the bead. So I might just try to reseat it. Because like the rubber seems to be in pretty good shape actually. So I'm going to try that. And then, what else was there? I have no idea if I put this engine back together correctly. Enough time had passed that I kind of forgot what I was doing. So I'm going to go through, spend some time, especially with the linkages for the carburetor. That's like the one thing that really, I kind of forgot what I was doing. And then I want to take these interlocks out just to salvage these. I kept all the bits and bobs that I'm not using just because even though this is a lawn chief, I think that they'll be interchangeable with a lot of MTD stuff. So I figured it was worth hanging on to. So I'm going to putz around on this wiring. And hopefully when I bring you guys back, we can at least engage the starter and then we can test everything out. So new key switch is in. I can focus. We've got everything shrink wrapped just to give it some more protection. Grounded to the frame. I kind of just made my own new harness here. Battery to the solenoid. And then solenoid to the starter. Right here, the stator going back to the switch, and then switch to the signal wire going to the solenoid, and this blue wire is the kill switch to the coil, and that runs up to the key switch as well. I threw in a good battery, so let's see if it all works like it should. This thing should turn perfect. All right, let's move on. All right, I don't have the drive belt hooked up yet. I just really want to see if this thing will turn over and fire. Threw some fuel in the tank, added a new fuel line, kept the old shut off and the fuel filter just because I ran out. If that's a problem, I'll maybe replace them, maybe not, just use them as is. I can't tell here, the throttle cable, the plastic on the console is all cracked, and that's all that holds the cable arm. So it's not getting the full range of motion down here. It's just, there's only a little bit in the, I just saw this filter leak, I think. Saw a dribble. Yeah. Filter's no good. I just want to turn it over and see what happens. Hopefully this thing will fire up. It's a gravity fed, and I might have, I don't know, I might have put the throttle linkage in backwards, so we'll see if it'll spin over any faster. That's interesting. It's neither fast nor slow. So I definitely have the linkages messed up, but it runs. All right, I think we're all good. I greased up the Zerk fittings that I could find, which is only the two on the front wheel axles. Everything else seems like it should be good to go. This is a two-piece carburetor, so there's really no idle. The governor controls the throttle. All the way up is choke. Let's see here, we're in neutral. Let's see how she fires up. You know what? It's helpful. Turn the fuel on. That might make a difference. I forgot about that. Let's try this again. First gear. Second gear. Third gear. Fourth gear. Fifth gear. Reverse. So for a pulling mower or a mud mower, I think it'll do its job just fine. Like I said, I took off the deck height adjustment and all the engagement levers for the engaging the deck, just because there was no deck and there's no point in having it, so I may as well keep some of those parts for spares for the next machine. I'm not going to worry about the seat. This is, whoever buys this is just going to beat it and abuse it. Tires are holding air. It's a sealed transmission, so there was nothing to check there. Everything else is working as it should. The carburetor, I did have it set up correctly the first time. It's just the whole two-piece linkage that kind of threw me off, because there was no way to manually engage the throttle, so it looked like it wasn't moving. But it's completely controlled by the governor. So everything is working fine, and I'm gonna get this listed and move on to the next project. With that, if you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, thanks for watching.